Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. We're helping you connect the dots, see the blind spots, and get unstuck so you can go out and generate more leads, more sales, more profits. More importantly, so you can go out and have a bigger reach, a bigger impact, and make a bigger contribution. I want to welcome Daniel Ruettiger to our training tonight. I feel very honored that Rudy's going to be joining us, guys. A good friend of mine, his name is Nick Nanton. Nick is a person who produces documentaries and does a lot of stuff with helping thought leaders, results leaders get more results. Nick Nanton actually did a documentary for Rudy about his journey, about his story. And I know many of you know of Rudy. He's inspired millions and millions and millions of people, not just in football. And, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Absolutely. I've probably seen it about 15 times. I watched it with Kyler again this past weekend. And man, I just am so grateful that Nick said, hey, yeah, I would love to get you connected to Rudy. And I asked Rudy to come on tonight, guys, to just share with you and your families, some of the insights that he's learned. A little back history before I kind of just ask Rudy some questions. Maybe if you guys have a question, you want to pop it in the chat window, pop it in the chat window. We've got a handful of minutes, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes for Rudy to join us. So I want to be respectful of that time. But for those of you who might not know Rudy's story, real quickly, he was somebody who, played high school football. He grew up in an area that was the steel mills of the country, right? And blue collar family. He was, I believe, the oldest of, I want to say 13 or 14 kids, right? So from the time he was born, probably even he would say to now, he's had to scrap for everything, right? When you're in a family with 13 or 14 kids, brothers and sisters, you're fighting over clothes, you're fighting over food, all these sorts of things. And some of you that have brothers and sisters know it, but imagine 13 or 14 kids you do that with. He was a really good high school athlete and he had a dream. And he was somebody who nobody really believed in him other than, I believe it was one of his really good friends who just nudged him and said, I believe in you and you can do it, and went through some tragedy. I don't want to steal too far into the story, but he went away to work in the steel mill for a couple years. He went into the military to serve our incredible country and came back. And he had a friend who had a terrible accident and I believe passed away as a result of that accident. And he said, I don't want to live with regrets, and literally quit and said, I'm going to find a way to get to Notre Dame, my dream. I'm going to live my dream. But he didn't have the grades. I believe he graduated with, he was the second worst grades in his entire high school, senior class, second worst, which means you're probably not getting into Notre Dame for that reason. So he said, I'm still going to find a way. He goes to Indiana. He enrolls at Holy Cross, which is a community college across the street, essentially. And he applies to Notre Dame. I believe it was close to 50 times that he applied and he got turned down. He got rejected. And guess what he did? He quit. No, he didn't quit. He kept going. He kept going. I don't know about you, but I can share with you about me. I think if I got rejected 50 times that way, I'd be like, man, enough is enough. But he kept believing in himself. He kept believing in his dream that he's going to go not just to Notre Dame, but he was going to play. And he even walked into the coach's office and said, Coach Parsegian, I'm going to come and play here at Notre Dame. He's 5'6" in the movie. One of my favorite lines, you're 5'6" nothing, 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. But inside he was a winner, a champion, and a whole lot more. And he believed in his dream. Long and the short of it is he ended up getting the grades. In the documentary, if you watch it, one of the greatest lessons you'll learn in life is about forging and building great relationships. He's a relationship builder. He's a long-term relationship builder. He got into Notre Dame. That was his first step. His second step was to walk on at Notre Dame and make first the practice squad, which he did. he ultimately got in a game and is, after 2 years of being at Notre Dame, getting his ass whooped every day on the scout team for 2 straight years, not even sniffing the field. He was passed over to play in what would have been his final game of his final season, and he essentially cashed it in and was ready to walk away. And he reconsidered. He came back. Coach Devine said, hey, we're going to play you. And he got a chance to stand on the sideline. He ran out of the tunnel. He led his team out of the tunnel. If you can imagine this, tens of thousands. I don't know what it was at the time at Notre Dame, but 40, 50, 60, maybe 100,000 cheering fans. And his team captain said, Rudy, you lead us out of the tunnel. And he led his team out of the tunnel. But he was on the sideline. And imagine this, guys. 2 years of busting your tail, trying to live your dream. He gets in the last handful of plays on a kickoff. I believe there was another play, and then on the last play of the game, he gets a sack and then gets carried off the field. At the time, it was the only player in Notre Dame history, I believe, to be carried off the Notre Dame football field. This is a guy who believed in himself when nobody else did. He's someone who is the epitome of persistence. He's the epitome of, being the underdog and finding a way to win. And I feel just, Rudy, I'm so grateful that you're taking the time with our young men tonight to share some insights, to share some strategies and wisdom. And so, man, thank you for joining us, Rudy. How are you? Oh, you're on mute, by the way. Still on mute.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
I'm on my cell phone. So
awesome. Thank you for being with us, Rudy.
Well, it's a great story you told, but some of it's true. Some of it's not.
Okay.
I only applied 3 times, not 50.
Okay.
And I had to do a lot of work before I understood what I had to do to get there. But look, here's the real lesson for our youth today, and we have to focus on this. We should not focus on winning at this point in their life. Winning is could be a real deterrent to build their character. We should teach them about the fundamentals of why they're there, and the purpose, of how they have to really unite as collaborating with their teammates, understanding their teammates, understanding the fundamentals, understanding the game. They're just not there to score touchdowns. They're not there to just be the toughest kid. They're there to develop physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually. And those are the ingredients of success, by the way. And there would be some kids who are already matured, but don't compare yourself to that. That's the poison. Don't compare, but always develop yourself in a way that where you learn more about why you're there. What's your purpose? You're not there to win trophies or medals. You're there to develop yourself as a young man, to know that life is hard. Life is not easy, and sports is probably the greatest thing you could get into to learn all about this, because everything doesn't go your way all the time in sports. So you have to learn to adapt. And those are the lessons we should be teaching right now. And that's what's awesome about youth sports. If we focus on, the first thing you should do is learn how to clean their own room. When they get up, let's get your bed made. Let's straighten up your room. If you're having problems at school, let's learn how to ask for help. Get off social media. You don't need social media. You don't need, all the stuff that the kids are on today. Learn to communicate with each other. That's the best way. And that's what teams do. You become a teammate. You trust. See, trust is a big thing. And you have to learn how to trust each other. The only way you know how to trust each other, if you're around each other and working with each other. And some kids, like I said, They don't come in the way they should at first, but they will mature into what they should be. So be patient with that. It's a big balance. I think it's a big balance in school and a big balance for coaches. If we're there to win, I think we're in the wrong game. You win in life, not on the field. The field's a teacher. The field's a platform to teach them about life. And that's what it comes down to, basically. And when you win, that's a beautiful thing, too. It's fun to win. But you can't learn much from winning. You learn more from losing. But when you win, you really appreciate it. And you have the gratitude. So all those things you learn, this is what life is about. This is what your coaches went through. They've been through that, to teaching you that. They know what the importance of sports. So fundamentals are very important. Very important. What do I mean by fundamental? Learn what you should be doing in order to be a good football player or whatever sport you're in. Learn that. And then the basics of just being good kids. And if you have a locker room and you pick up your locker room, you pick up whatever you need. If you got problems with school, you go ask for help. Don't discount the responsibilities for that. It's very important. So
Rudy,
that's what you learn in sports. That's
Rudy,
what sports are about.
Rudy, speaking of fundamentals and asking for help, I don't know if you can remember back when you were like in the heat of the pursuit of Notre Dame, but like, what would you say to our kids like that they might be like you in many ways. They might be undersized. They don't have maybe they haven't developed yet, and they see all these kids bigger. And you kind of talked a little bit about comparing to others. If you could remember back, like what kept you going and like
a great coach that kept you going, a great coach that mentored you and allowed you to be patient with yourself. He coached you and empowered you. He never told you what you're doing wrong. He said, this is what we can do better. And that is a good coach.
And speaking of a good coach, knowing what you know today, I'm curious, and it may be nothing, but like, what would you have done different knowing what you do today about your pursuit on your journey playing at Notre Dame?
Nothing.
And why would you say that?
You deal with the card. The cards that are dealt to you got to deal with that. And you don't live in the past. You can't go back in the past. You got to go what you learned in the past, what you have to do in the moment to prepare for the future. You can't change what's over, but you can change what's happening. That's what's important.
I know for me, Rudy, one time in my businesses, someone asked me like, how is it you've had all these failures and you've kept going? I said, well, I was dumb enough to believe it could work.
Well, that's naive faith. You got to have it.
Yep.
Some people overanalyze, overmarket, and they get paralyzed. Then they have that fear factor. That's why it's best not to know. If I would have known about Hollywood or Notre Dame, I would never tried it. Never. It's too complicated, it's best not to know sometimes. Just plow through it.
Yeah, I think I heard a talk you had done where you talked about, some people attach to like the result way too much versus just the pursuit.
Yeah, the pursuit is the learning part of it. Even when you make the tackle, I mean, it wasn't such a big deal. It was, wow, to get in that game, the preparation I had to do just to get there and how ready I was for the moment. That was the key. And,
I can't help but wonder, like, it's a storybook, your life, right? Can you remember a time like where you were at your lowest? Whether it was.
Well, you're human. You're a human being. You're going to get to your lowest points. That's why you need good people around you, good mentors, good coaches, to push you through that. You can't do it alone.
What would you say? What would you say to somebody? Because, a lot of the young kids, I had a hard time with this, truthfully, for probably a couple decades, my first couple decades of business, of being open to ask for help, right? To reach out and just say, hey, I could use some help.
Well, you learn that you probably have that in school. If you asked a question, you were stupid.
Yep.
And that Larry was there. Get rid of that. I had to get rid of that. Asking for help means you're smart. So I feel, I got my dog. I don't know why he's going crazy. We'll get ready to move here, and we got stuff all over the place. Where is Jack? Jack, what are you doing? Oh, he's barking at the TV. Gotcha. So anyhow, it's a fascinating, complicated. No matter if you're teaching kids or adults, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because everyone has different layers of personalities, and a coach has to learn how to deal with each and every one of that, especially with the millennials today. They say they're more entitled. That's because they get information much faster, much quicker than we did. They learn faster, and they know a little more than what we know right now. And a lot, I wouldn't say, because they can get information much quicker. When we grew up, we had to go to the library and go through the crazy library. It takes you for hours.
Yes, we
did. Yeah, now it's like, boom, you got info. You want to know something, ask Siri, she'll tell you. I mean, that's the reality of it. But you got to still stick to the basics. I entered Notre Dame football, they went right to the basics. I couldn't believe it. That's what they taught every day. The basics, getting in their stands, watching the football, move on the football, all the little basics, the quarterback, you go into pros, it's even more basics they hit you on. That's why they look so good, because they practice the basics. And we don't do that in youth sports. I don't understand that. We want to get there too fast. No. Be patient. Slow is good. And preparation is good. And development is good. So when they know that, then they understand that. Yeah, there's some kids that grow faster, like you say, and can mature faster. That doesn't mean they're developed. Not at all. Just means the other kids aren't.
And like a couple of your qualities I observe, Rudy, again from afar, seeing your documentary, seeing the movie, seeing some of the talks you've given over time at different conferences. You have this innate ability to be persistent when everything is kind of to the normal mind or person saying no. You have this resilience about you. You have this consistency about you. Like, what could you say to these young men about developing that muscle of persistence?
Well, it's a belief factor. That's the muscle. If you don't believe, you got to believe in. See, you got to develop who you are. You have to believe in who you are. That's the key. Then that comes into play, that persistence, because only you know who you are. People judge you and look at you differently. How do you look at yourself? That's the whole magic of it. And it's how you look at yourself, it develops that muscle.
So, man, I hope that you're really picking up what Rudy is sharing with you. How you see yourself is ultimately going to determine a lot of your destiny. You got to have belief in yourself. You've got to develop the muscles of persistence, consistency, the basic fundamentals.
Well, the confidence gives them that confidence. Develop the belief, the confidence, and your self-image. All that comes natural.
I'm curious if you can think back to when you were 17, 18 years old, played your last game of high school football. You kind of went in your, well, I'll just define it as the limbo period where you worked in you went to the military. How did you see yourself then? And was there something that switched?
Because most people live in regret. I don't want to live in regret. And when you think like that, you're never too old. And now what comes into play is maybe I'm not as fast, but I can contribute. Maybe I'm not as big, but I can contribute. Maybe I'm not the guy they're looking for, but I can contribute. Contribute. That was the key. I can contribute to their success.
That's amazing, man. I hope you're paying close attention. This is something you're going to hear for the rest of your life, is that when you show up and contribute and add value in the world, go out and get anything you want. There's another lesson I have picked up observing, a lot of the things you've shared. It's relationship building, Rudy.
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the relationship is people. If you don't build a relationship, people won't give you that second chance. The reason why I made it at Notre Dame, because I went into the admissions office, instead of saying why, I said, what more can I do? You earn the respect. And when you earn the respect, knowing that you're going to help them instead of them helping you, it's not how much you care, it's how much they care. It's that thing. And that relationship is very important. When they care about you, they help you.
And as I think I understand it, you were on campus so often with this mindset of contribution that many of the administrators thought you just went to Notre Dame without.
Well, because you're there. It's what you see is what you believe. I mean, you're there. You have to be a student. You don't need to tell them differently. But you were there building relationship. And by the way, those were the guys chanting Rudy, were the students, not the football team.
Yep. Man, I hope you're paying attention to that contribution, right? What more can I do? How can I help you? Right?
Yeah. I mean, we that's a process. I think it's all about the process you learn. Some of us can get there faster. They have that talent, that skill, that ability. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get there. It's not how you start, it's how you end up. I ended up with a Notre Dame degree, Notre Dame ring, Notre Dame football. I ended up in Hollywood. Ended up, probably one of the best sports movies ever made for a message. I say that because I'm a little biased, but I hear it all the time, how it goes outside of football, the movie Rudy.
Yeah.
That's why I say that. It reaches people. That it has nothing to do with football or Notre Dame. It has to do with that human journey of life.
And speaking of that, Rudy, I know I promised, through Nick, 10 to 15 minutes. So I know we're getting to that. Yeah, that finish. What's something I should have asked you that I didn't?
I'm glad you didn't ask me, but I'm glad you asked the questions you did. How's that?
That's perfect. What would you hope would be, 1 to 3 action steps these young men would take as they move forward?
Clean their room right now. Go home and get your room straight now. That's one. Have that first success in the morning, and you'll be surprised how you get good affirmation. And by the way, you're probably doing it already, but just do it better. Just do things better. That's all. And it gets better. So, and treat your sisters, brothers right. Focus on the things that are positive, whatever they may be. Friends who are positive. Don't hang around friends who are naysayers. Those are the things that will get you to where you need to go. I will say this, you will fail, but that doesn't mean you're a bad child. That means you learn, and don't make that second mistake. You can't. If you do, just learn again and keep moving. Just don't sit there and keep making that same mistake over and over again. Learn from it.
That's awesome. If people want to know more about what you're up to, some of the projects you've got going on, Rudy,
they could go to I'll tell you, they should go to Rise Above with Rudy, our podcast. We have some great leaders. I mean, from Sprint, the CEO of Sprint, who took the company from bankruptcy to #1, to a young lady who coached gymnastics at UCLA, who never coached gymnastics and won 10 championships because she created a mindset. And that's what's good. And all the leaders we speak to, we just spoke to a doctor who went to medical school and he was at rare disease, and they gave him his last rites. But he found his own cure for his disease, because then he went out and got his MBA on top of that. So those stories are incredible. Then we have a former pilot that fought in he was a fighter pilot, went to the Naval Academy, was in Afghanistan. I mean, was all the big wars over there, and they wouldn't take him as a pilot for United, but he fought his way through and finally got that job. But no matter what you have accomplished, you still have to pursue that with passion. And he convinced him that this is what he wanted. So it was important to hear these type of stories, because they all go through it. Just because you're gifted in one area doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. You still have to fight for it.
Absolutely. So, man, if you want to check out Rudy's podcast, you can go to
Rise Above with Rudy.
Rise Above with Rudy.
Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube. You can, I love listening to the guys we interview, because they've been through it.
That's amazing. So guys, check out Rise Above with Rudy. Check out the podcast. Check out all the great work he's doing. Rudy, man, it's a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time.
Don't tell them to watch the documentary too. You can see a difference. Me now, me then. I changed. I went out and started exercising after I saw that documentary.
So check out the documentary. We'll have the links in the notes, guys, so you can get access to the documentary. Rudy, thanks for being with us. Guys, is that awesome, guys, or what? How about a quick chant for Rudy? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rudy.
Rudy. Rudy. Rudy. Rudy. Go make your bed. Do your home. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GrowthToFreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at BreakthroughStrategyCall.com. That's BreakthroughStrategyCall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.